And we rolling. Hello everyone, I am your host, Peter, and this is Talking Shit in My Car. This is a topic I've been trying to do for a little while. There's a lot to it, so I'm going to take another stab at it right now. I'm not even sure what to call it. I've been calling it Reciprocal Opinions, which is pretty awful. But we'll stick with that for the time being. Right, we're going to start with no smoking signs, okay? So, no smoking signs were actually invented by the tobacco industry in order to put the idea of smoking into your head. I think they were originally put into movie theaters. They may have been put into actual theaters or with actors and stuff. But I know they were put into movie theaters, and really the whole thing with this is that it creates an artificial adversary, creates something to rebel against. At the time, something of a non sequitur. People didn't really have a problem with smoking the way we do now in terms of a health issue, and so they wouldn't understand what's the big deal, and is it even messing with the projectionist kind of thing or whatever. So it became a way to plant the idea in people's heads. Now, I want you to keep in mind the amount of money that the tobacco industry made. The tobacco industry was one of the largest and most profitable industries in the history of the United States of America, I think, and in the world, really, but continues to be absolutely huge, even with all of the settlements that they've had to make and all kinds of things. But just keep this in mind, because the amount of money that was spent doing market research to figure out how to compel people to smoke was staggering. Just want you to keep that in mind. And the big thing that they went with, it was to tell you not to do it. Right? Now, fast forward to I guess around the 90s, there was a big loss, again, for the tobacco industry, where they were held liable for lots of things. And part of the settlement deal and reparations was that they had to pay for an ongoing campaign to teach young people not to smoke and what the dangers of it are. Okay, that's like built into it, so that and hence the Truth campaign was born. I believe it still exists, and to me, it seems to be the most insidious piece of marketing I've ever seen in my life, insofar as what they're doing is they are so over the top with their explanations of why you shouldn't smoke that it basically makes you want to run the other way. I've seen these ads, and I'm just like, oh God, get out of my face, I can't take you, and they turn me off entirely, and I don't even smoke, okay? I agree with everything they have to say, but it's not what they have to say, it's how they say it, and the parts that they choose to talk about, right? So, this is a big deal, and I think that it's something that a lot of people are missing, is that this is marketing in its finest, because it is reaching into people's minds on a conflict resolution basis, right? They're inciting conflict, and the conflict reflex is something that people go to very easily. Fight or flight is wired into all mammals, right? So, and you're a mammal and so am I, so in case you clear that up, in case you didn't do well in science, it means that we freak out easily. We all have our thresholds for freaking out and making the adrenaline flow and getting excited, right? We get scared and we get pissed off easily. It's what we do. So, I think it's insidious and marvelous, but how much money was spent in learning how to market these things? They can't not know this, right? There's no way that money was just spent and that people threw that information away. All right, so now let's take a left turn and let's talk about. Well, actually, even before I get into that turn, I want to say that there's this part of this, and I'll spin a little woo of my own here with regard to social science, right? You want to apply scientific principles and rigor and ideals and notions to societal analysis and call it science, then I'll come in with you and I'll go so far as to say that you could apply certain ideas of physics in a social context. For example, the idea of action leading to reaction. For every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, and one could say when you assert something socially, there is a counter surge to come and shout you down, right? Okay, so whatever political opinion is asserted, there will be an organized resistance to come and counter assert, right? To counter ideologically, whatever. And this is how we have our pendulum swings in society, and now I'm going to back off and leave. I will submit to my betters all of my woo for analysis, right? Now we'll take that left turn I was talking about, which is really to do with social justice. And part of why the pejorative social justice warrior exists, okay? Let's talk about it, let's analyze it, let's be a little real about it, and I think the call-out culture aspect might be a problem. To coin a word, problematic. I'm sorry. It's I'm a little sorry. The point I'm making is simply this: call-out culture encourages and demands of adherents that they call people out on behavior that they find objectionable. So the standard entry-level call-out culture sort of thing, it would be jokes, right? So if you tell an ethnic joke or a sexist joke, someone who you say it to or around should call you out and say, hey, not cool, don't tell jokes like that. And it doesn't matter if the sort of person who is disparaged by this joke is around or not to be offended. You must be offended on their behalf and stick up for people, right? You call people out for being, assholes, rude, uncaring, savages, what have you, right? That's part of the call-out culture standardized thing. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, please, all right? But then I've seen it extend to other things. For example, people who are YouTube creators are called out for the comment sections of their videos, whether or not they moderate them, whether or not they shout people down, whether or not they specifically call people out and say, hey, you're harassing people, you're going over the line, you're doing whatever, right? That you have to get in there, duke it out with your followers, and tone police your audience is the key thing here, right? So that's another aspect of things. And now, most recently with the election of Donald Trump, there is a call to reach out to people around you and engage with them, people who either voted for Trump or who didn't vote at all, to say, hey, to engage with them and sort of shame them for their apathy or their connection with their perception of, hate and racism and all the other things, the list of horribles assigned to Donald Trump. And I've seen it where people have been challenged to call out their own family. They say, well, at least there's someone in your family who either didn't vote at all or who voted for Trump, so you should go and confront them. And I say, that's rude. I think it's important that we don't make a thing out of who's voting for whom. And in fact, I don't think it's anyone's business at all. I think it's important that it's not anyone's business. Otherwise, it becomes votes for sale. And I think the point I'm trying to make is simply this: scolding people, calling them out, calling them all kinds of names, accusing them of being all kinds of terrible things, a list of horribles, has the opposite reaction, perhaps, of what is intended with regards to attempting to persuade people. And persuading people. Persuasion is how you win elections. Persuasion is how politics works. Demonizing half of the population, to me, does not seem productive in terms of attempting to sway public opinion. Shaming people for exercising their vote the way they want to, whether that is completely apathetic and staying home, or for voting for someone you disagree with. It's non-productive. And you should just pay attention to hundreds of millions of dollars worth of market research that will tell you that doing things like this will get you the opposite result. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say, and hopefully it was concise enough this time. So, thank you all for listening, and bye for now.